fuck's going on there, Hop Wolves? It's your boy, Arie Lombardozzi, back again, flying solo. Unfortunately, Todd is not joining me today. I know he's super jealous, but that's better for me, I guess. I'm back with another edition of HOWL at the Moon, where we talk to artists that you should definitely know about if you don't already. And today, of course, super stoked. We talk about this gentleman's band all the fucking time on the show. I have Kyle Anderson of Branda Sacrifice. What's good, homie? How are you today?
Doing really well, man. Happy to be here. Got a coffee in me, so we're ready to go for the day.
You need it, man. I know we were talking beforehand, but the lifeblood, that is coffee to myself and Todd, and it translates pretty well into what we'll be talking about with your lifeblood.
Totally.
I mean, I guess I really just wanted to say too, like, I don't know where it fell with the listeners, but we talked about Branda Sacrifice when we started doing the podcast. We started doing it around this time last year, so this is later in October. But I think for probably like at least the first 10 episodes, we could not talk about Branda Sacrifice and what you guys were doing. So
that's awesome, man.
I'm totally fanboying for sure. I'm gonna try to keep it to a minimum, but just really like impressed with not only the musicianship that you guys bring, but the production value with the records, like the videos, and then you're doing manga. There's a lot that I want to touch upon, but I guess the first thing is, you know, how has the reaction been to Lifeblood? I mean, this is your second album. For essentially a project that was just a side project, right? This wasn't even your main focus.
Yeah, I think the feedback and response to Lifeblood was extremely solid, and we didn't know what to expect, to be honest. Godhand was a decent release as well as far as that went, but it was pretty overwhelming, the positive response to that record, Lifeblood, and super humbled by it, super happy about it. And we just can't wait to get more music out there. But yeah, it was a really fun record to make. There were definitely a few trials and tribulations during the process. Mostly on my side, I sort of had a bit of a block actually at one point. I was kind of stuck and I couldn't come up with anything. But then all of a sudden the juices started flowing again and we got it done. But yeah, I'm very happy with that record, and I'm just really excited to get to more music. So,
yeah, for sure. And obviously, during these COVID times and pandemic times, it's even harder to put out new music because now you're going to be going on tour. But when you were releasing Lifeblood, I mean, thankfully, things like reaction videos. I know I've listened to a couple interviews where you talk about how important that is to our day and age for bands. And I mean,
totally.
When Demon King dropped, people were losing their fucking minds, like myself included. And it just really goes to show like the day and age where you can have things like these reaction videos to keep these tracks fresh and alive for everyone. So can't wait to hear what's next from you guys. And also, I mean, let's get into the touring. Like you have played what was it recently, the Blue Ridge Festival,
the Blue Ridge Rock Fest. Yeah, that was an awesome one. As far as the set went, there was definitely some challenges at that festival that I heard of, but the day that we played, didn't seem like there was any sort of issues that I noticed on my side. But that was really cool. A lot of kids were out, a lot of fans were out, and I was super surprised because at the same time we had Trivium and Beartooth playing at the same time as our set. So that's a little bit
oh shit.
Those are some pretty powerful acts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was really happy that there were people hanging out with us, and a fair amount of them too. So that was a great set, a lot of fun. And it was good also to shake the rust off a little bit because, we've been out of practice for a year and a half because of these trying times with COVID-19 and all that. So
right.
It was an excellent sort of reintroduction to the scene and to playing live music. So had a great time.
That's awesome, man. I saw some of the live videos from there, or just like based on the Instagram, and that festival looked pretty nuts. And like you said, those are some really big acts to kind of go up against. But you guys have been a tour de force ever since. I mean, before Lifeblood, but it has been definitely more prominent since the record has been released. So you're going to be channeling that energy into two very fucking big tours coming up. I mean, you're leaving in just a couple days for the Dying Fetus tour.
Yeah, that one I'm really excited for. It's not a kind of a build that you see very often. It's very mixed. You're starting off with Vitriol, which is sort of a black and death metal type band. Us were like more along the lines of deathcore, I'd say, and then Terror's like, a legacy hardcore band, and I love Terror's music. Then you got Dying Fetus, which brutal death. So you've got a lot of different styles and a lot of different sounds and a lot of different fan bases that are going to be hanging out for this. So I think that it's a very cool bill, and I'm excited to see all the bands, and there's always things that you can learn from those who've been around the block quite a few times. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it as well, and that's going to be a really fun one. Sort of circling around the northeast side a little bit. I think it goes as far as, there's actually a couple of Florida dates, surprisingly, which it seems tours often skip Florida. So I'm kind of excited to go there. It's pretty rare that we've been able to. I think we played there one time or two times, and that was our very first tour ever. With Signs of the Swarm back in May of 2019. So and I guess we haven't been touring very long, actually, that I think about it, as this band. So
right, because this is not your first band, and you've had other bands. You have other bands. So it's got to be, and I did want to touch upon this before we get to this next tour, because this is also another banger. Your vocal range, whether that be singing or screaming, is one of my favorites. And
thank you.
I love going through and listening to like essentially like the Kyle Anderson discography. So like I'll start with the After Image, and then I'll go to Earthshatter, and then Brand of Sacrifice, and they're just such like I mean they're very different things from one another. So it's really cool, like when you released Enemy, to hear like a little bit more of that melodic side that you have in your vocal range. I guess what I'm getting is like, this isn't your first rodeo, but a little bit more with the Brand of Sacrifice crew. So that's got to be exciting to finally get out a little bit more and play these shows, especially again this next tour with Chelsea Grin, Kingdom of Giants, and Filth, which is another stacked lineup. Really surprised to see Kingdom of Giants on there, but really that band's great.
They're a great band. I think again, that's we've got three sort of in the world of deathcore type bands, and I think it's nice to see some variation. It's funny because we're doing this tour, which is more of like a deathcore, and we're like sort of fitting the bill, and then we're gonna go to a tour where we're the odd man out after this, which is in Europe with Era and Dayseeker and Hollow Front. So we're definitely the odd man out on that tour, and that's in Europe. So it's really cool. I think the first three tours we're doing back are very different. They're all different fan bases, different types of people that we're going to be able to sort of get the music out there too, as well, and hopefully have some crossover in the future.
The thing about Brand of Sacrifice that's really appealing, I'm sure people are going to get so fucking sick of me saying this, but we talk about just like bands either like that present journeys and like kind of transcend genres. But like, as far as what Brand of Sacrifice is doing with the deathcore, like palatable is another term that I like to use a lot, but like like you're saying, like you're playing like the Hollow Front crowd, like the Era crowd, and then you're playing like Dying Fetus and Terror, but like what you're doing like can kind of encompass, like, it's not just deathcore, like you're adding a lot of elements to it that is more accessible to a wider audience. So hopefully, like you said, there's
Sure.
crossover and that will get you a couple new fans.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping for it. I think you're going to hear some. I feel like we definitely added a lot of new stuff on Lifeblood compared to Godhand, but we're going to take it even further now. We have a lot of new sounds that we want to add to the arsenal, and I think we're going to explore the melodic stuff a little more.
Awesome.
So I don't. There was pretty positive feedback to adding the harsh, clean vocals, I guess you could call them.
Okay.
To Enemy, and so I think we can sort of explore that a little more. Probably won't go like after Image High or anything like that, but I
Damn it.
we'll see. I think we'll definitely incorporate a little bit more melody if the song calls for it.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like we were talking to Jordan Milner from the Breathing Process about like incorporating some because Todd and I are both big fans of Odyssey Undead, and like the earlier, I mean, we're still fans of the band now, but
Right.
they had a lot of female vocals and a lot of melodic moments, and we're like, is that ever going to come back? And he's like, well, I mean, if it calls for it. So like, to your point, it seems like you don't just want to, you want to have that in mind when writing, I guess, or again, if it calls for it, but
Totally.
you can always tell if it's forced, like it's an afterthought to be like, oh, well, we should have like a clean chorus or something like that. And you're like, this just kind of seems like it's tacked on. That doesn't fare too well.
Yeah, I think I can go for any kind of part too, like whether it's a breakdown. Sometimes breakdowns can feel pretty forced.
Right.
That can go a lot of different ways. It's all about, having those solid transitions and, writing something that makes sense and sort of takes that song to the next level. So, but you're right, you can definitely tell when things are forced, especially with choruses too.
So in regards to like, again, like the touring and whatnot, you guys are independent, correct? Like you're doing your own thing, management, and I know I've read a bunch of interviews saying that like you've always kind of been a DIY band and having a hand in the process a lot. So what has that looked like transitioning like into these upcoming tours? Like, are you guys the ones booking the tours, or like how does that process work being as an independent band?
I'd say the majority of what we do is DIY. We do have a booking agent that we work with who's incredible, Nick Storch, and he works with a lot of other great acts. Our friends in Shadow of Intent are also with him as well. That's been a massive step forward for the band. We also have a distribution partner for digital music, Blood Blast, which is sort of like a break off of Nuclear Blast that focuses on digital only. That stuff we've got a good team as far as that goes, and we do have an excellent PR partner as well. So we work with those individuals pretty closely, but everything else is handled by the band. So day-to-day management, the music itself, the mixing, the writing, all that kind of stuff is all in-house. A lot of the merch designs we handle as well. So we try and do as much as we can, and also we when to hand it over to someone that's a real pro in certain aspects. So and it's also just, at a certain point you just can't do everything. It's right. It's just too much. So maybe one day we will move to a manager at some point when things get a little crazy, but I think for the time being we could do some more growing and then make that decision later. So as far as Lifeblood goes, I think it was a pretty seamless transition. I think we sort of had the team in mind that we wanted for this release. So sort of put the pieces together, and we knew what was going to be required as far as, vinyl production and CDs and merch and all that kind of stuff. So we prepared all that ahead of time ourselves, and looked into getting proper chart positions and what needs to be submitted to be eligible for chart positions, Billboard, all that kind of boring back end stuff. Figured it all out with a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes too, but we got it working, got it all together. So it was definitely a learning experience and sometimes a little bit challenging, but I think we sort of have it locked in and dialed in now at this point.
Again, like kudos and congratulations to, making that step, because that, like you said, like it was a seamless transition, and would not, like, if I didn't know that you were kind of like you were doing a lot of it yourself, like it would seem like you're still under the record label.
Yeah.
So it's
I think
very
a lot
impressive.
of people thought that, surprisingly. They were referring to the band as being under unique leader. And love those guys, by the way. Nothing bad to say about the label. Great staff, great people that are a part of that. It was just the end of the contract at that point.
Gotcha. So. Speaking on merch, and we were kind of chatting about this before, you have another company called Shibori Threads, and I know that the influence, like the Japanese culture influence, is in the band, in the threads. I actually didn't realize what Shibori was. So I looked it up. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, that makes sense, like what you're doing, but I didn't realize like the specifics of what goes into making the Shibori. So like how, I guess this is kind of like a 2-part question. How did you get into doing these custom merch drops? And then also where does the love and appreciation for Japanese culture stem from?
We had a couple of Branda Sacrifice tie-dye hoodies historically, and they were very popular on the road. So we sort of had the idea to maybe try and do some fully custom hoodies and do them for other bands, because you weren't seeing a lot of tie-dye stuff at that time, about a year ago, year and a half ago. And we sort of reached out to a few of our peers. I think the first drop was Slaughter to Prevail, Signs of the Swarm, Distant, Volvadinia. No, that was the second one. Volvadinia was on that one. Who else was there? I Declare War, and there was also Brand of Sacrifice. And there was a bunch of challenges that we had to overcome. It's a little bit different than just making merch for your own band. You have to figure out the whole supply chain and how you're going to get everything delivered to everyone, and making sure the quality controls there and all that kind of stuff. So we definitely, we had a few stumbles here and there along the way, but I think we've sort of got it dialed in now. It's been just over a year now. About a year and a couple of weeks that we've been a brand now. And but it stems from the love of creating merch for the band, our own band, Brand of Sacrifice, and sort of coming up with new and unique tie-dye patterns and things like that other bands may not be selling in their stores. So we want to make it sort of exclusive and sort of have a limited streetwear drop kind of business model. Because we want to keep them special, each piece to be its own unique thing. So that's sort of been how we've been doing things, and it's been growing rapidly since we started. We're actually in the top 1% of Shopify stores at the moment.
No shit.
So which is really cool. I found that out not that long ago. So we've been
awesome.
able to work with a lot of really awesome bands. As far as the Japanese culture influence, I think that stemmed from watching anime as a young kid with my uncle. He sort of introduced me to, Dragon Ball and Astro Boy and all kinds of stuff when I was young, and I loved it. And obviously we watched Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and things like that as kids and whatnot.
Right.
And I just sort of went down the rabbit hole and started watching all kinds of different anime and manga and getting into Japanese culture as a whole. Just think is very interesting. I think a lot of people share that sentiment. So just all started with my uncle showing me, anime cartoons on a tube TV as a kid, and that grew from there. And as you said before, this was originally a side project, Branda Sacrifice, and it was supposed to be based on my favorite manga, Berserk, a one-off EP. Didn't really think much of it, and it sort of grew very quickly, and we didn't expect that to happen. And now it's the main project, and we have a lot of fun making it. And honestly, at the time, we were not having as much fun with the old project. It was becoming pretty daunting to write that stuff. We weren't having as much fun with it.
Okay.
This was like a nice refresh for us. Got to just make ridiculous music that we didn't have to worry about certain things being confined to certain boxes or whatnot. So I think it sort of got us excited about making music again, and we still absolutely love writing this stuff. It's just a lot of fun.
Circling back to the manga inspiration, what was it like creating the manga style comic for Branda Sacrifice? Like, how did that come about? I mean, it seems like it's on brand, pun totally intended, but like, what was that process like?
We sort of wanted to do some manga inspired merch, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, it'd be cool to have like comic or manga panels that were sort of on the sleeves of a shirt or a long sleeve or a hoodie. And we started toying with that idea, but we didn't really have any like material to work with. So it started with that. And I was like, wait, it'd be pretty cool to try and write something that was a fresh take and sort of incorporate it into the world that we're creating visually, with like our album covers and things like that, and start to tell a little bit of a story. And it's pretty preliminary, the manga. I'd say it's more like an issue 0, I guess, where we're figuring things out. But that was a lot of fun. We sort of worked with an artist, and I gave them kind of basic idea of what I wanted the panels to look like and what I was trying to portray. And it's sort of just adding an additional character that's not on the album covers, but sort of explaining that the woman and the sort of monster there are actually one and the same person.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So it's it's pretty preliminary, pretty basic, but we might expand upon that further because I think it went over pretty well, and people are interested to see some more of that. So.
Oh, hell yeah. It's been really cool to see bands like yourself. And another one that comes to mind is what Distant is doing with their lore from the latest album cycle, and writing a book that kind of just expands upon the world that they're creating, and love toying with like different mediums, because art stems from art, and you take inspiration from manga or whatever it may be, and then kind of bring it back to the source is really pretty cool. I guess, which kind of segues into my next question. The video work that has been coming off of Lifeblood is fan-fucking-tastic. I'm sure anyone that's listened to this show even once knows like how much I love seeing when bands do like really cool, especially narrative type of work with the music videos. And recently you kind of like brought it back full circle, because like there was Animal, and then Enemy was stemming, like that was the prequel to Animal, yes. Correct? Okay.
Yeah, it was.
So how did that whole like what's the video process work like for you guys? Like, are you the ones writing the treatments, or like do you have this overarching, because Enemy came out significantly later than Lifeblood, of course. So was that like, did you have that in mind while going into this? Take me to there.
Sure. Yeah. So I got to give credit where it's due, and that's to Joey Durango, the director of those videos. We sort of gave him an idea of what we were feeling vibe wise. Okay. But he came up with the story and what the scenes would look like, and the fight scenes and kind of stuff were sort of figured out by the actors. They locked in the choreography and whatnot. The idea to make it a prequel was more of Joey's. idea. But we did want to at least continue that animal story in some way, because there's some connections as far as the lyrics go, things like
Okay.
that. You can hear it even in the second verse that Spencer Chamberlain screams there. Kind of calls back to Animal a little bit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so that's mostly him. Originally the idea was to sort of do more of like a sci-fi type look.
Okay.
But I think it worked out better to do the more looking a little bit more ancient as far as the visuals and the vibe went, or the time period, I should say. So I think that worked out great. And we weren't able to sort of fly out or be a part of the music video at that time. So we said, why not, you know, I know he does a lot of music videos, but he wants to get into making movies too. So I wanted to give him free reign to come up with a little short film based on that. So that was him. I got to give him the credit for that. That's what he came up with. So
That's awesome. I mean, they look beautiful, and it goes really well with the song, because sometimes when at least to me, like when a band does a like a short film, it's film. Like music videos are still film. Like I know that they aren't like some people, like there's a gray line to be like, well, you're not like an actual filmmaker. Like, well, that's bullshit. But anyway, it's just really cool to see like when the song fits, or like the images fit the song. Cause I've definitely seen videos where I'm like, yeah, like the video looks cool, but like I wish the song wasn't there because it just like taking me out of it, or vice versa. Like the images don't match up as well. So that's awesome. And anytime I see a Brand of Sacrifice video come out, I'm like, this is something special for sure.
Thank you, man.
The last thing that I want to touch upon before we finish up here, we're part of BREWTAL is we love metal and we love craft beer. And I know not too long ago, you had a collab with Vox and Hops. Love Matt and what he's doing. Can you talk to us about the Lifeblood IPA? And I mean, it did really well too.
That was a collaboration with, of course, Vox and Hops and Matt, as well as a brewery called Third Moon, and they're quite popular at this point. I think on Untapped, and especially locally as well. They're pretty up there as far as ratings go. They're really solid brewery. I think they had like a #1 rated brewery in Canada or something like that at one point. They're a fairly new entity, but they're blown up. So it was really cool because the gentleman that runs it, he's a big fan of metal. We were super excited to go down to the brewery and chat, and we just had a Zoom call. We kind of discussed what it would be like. They asked me what kind of hops I like. I said I'm a big fan of Citra hops. So we mixed some local hops and Citra hops, and it's a double IPA. So to take some of the edge off, we added the lactose. That was Matt's call.
Nice.
And so it's a little bit of a heavier beer, I'd say, but it's super smooth and refreshing. I'd say it's still pretty hoppy, but it's the edge is taken off by the lactose. So
that sounds really fucking good. I love any beer that has like the lactose element to it, because I think like when people are first getting into IPAs, like it's a little bit easier now just because of things like the lactose and New England styles that aren't as bitter and like palate crushing, where before it was like predominantly West Coast, and you know, you take one sip and you're pretty much like you're stuck with that beer because you can't really taste anything else other than the bitterness coming off of those.
And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of those too, but it was nice to, I think it's a nice, like, my mom actually enjoyed it, and she does not like really hoppy beers, although she said that the 8% kind of hit her pretty hard. She's only like 5'1", so very much.
That's awesome. So you guys, like, as a band, are fans of craft beer then?
I'd say it's mostly me that's a fan of it. I think that Leo would have it here and there. but it's mostly me that's a bit more of a, I wouldn't say I'm a nerd about it, but I do enjoy them. And
Yeah.
when I have the opportunity and I'm in a city that has a brewery or like a nice pub that has a lot of different beers on tap, I'll definitely check it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel the same way. Anytime there's like a cool local spot to check out, and it's cool. It's like part of the culture of the city and whatnot. You get a good snack, kind of like being a foodie in a sense.
Yeah,
but thank you so much for coming on and taking time. I know getting ready for tour must be super crazy and hectic. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Really appreciate it.
Last thing, how can people stay connected with you, with the band? You know, obviously there's a lot of cool tours coming up. Plug away, sir.
Yeah, you could go to brandasacrifice.com, and that has all the links to every social. Make it easy for you. For myself, I'm usually on Instagram posting away. That's Kyle of Sacrifice. And then my clothing brand is Shibori Threads, at Shibori Threads. And that's pretty much the majority of what I've been working on these days.
Awesome. Well, you heard it. Go give Kyle and Branda Sacrifice and Shibori Threads all the love. And we can't wait to see what you have next, man. Take care.
Thank you, man. Take care.